All right. Good timing.
There you go.
All righty. Good evening. I'm Tom Boak, Chair of the Kennebunkport Planning Board. This is a virtual planning board meeting. We're using Zoom conferencing format. The agenda is on the town website with information public needs to participate in the conferencing. If you wish to participate through Zoom, you can join us on webinar 920-4640-9044. I hope I copied that right. I think I forgot to update that. That's not probably the right number. So anyway, you can do it's on the website. If you are conferencing in by phone through Zoom or watching this on cable, you have to turn down your volume. Otherwise, we get feedback. As always, you can watch this on television on channel 1301 or stream it on YouTube at Kennebunkport Television. During the meeting, only the planning board members and current participants will be selected by the board to be on screen with audio connected. All other participants will be backed out with audio muted, except when the board solicits public input. The public hearing is on the agenda for a particular topic, which the first two tonight are the applicant and board members will have discussions, after which I open the public hearing. At that time, anyone who wishes to be heard should raise their hand on Zoom. If we recognize those people we recognized in turn, if you happen to be using a telephone to connect, raise your hand is *6, toggle mute is *9. If you haven't gotten the latest update of the agenda, you realize that item 1, Henry Family Trust Ebbs Cove Dock, and item number 4, Ocean Woods Resort, have been delayed to the June 2nd meeting at the request of the applicants. The remaining 5 items on the agenda will be discussed, and we will not start a new topic after 9 p.m. in accordance with the 3-hour limit specified in our rules. Okay, attendance. Looks like we have everybody. So I'm here. Nina?
Here.
Here. Scott?
Here.
Ed? Larry? Here. George? Here. John?
Here.
Awesome. Okay, item 1 is off the table for till next week. So that brings us to night number 2 on the agenda, item 210401, Ivy Subdivision, Tobago Techniques Authorized Agent. So we need to bring in Steve Doe and probably either Ralph Austin or one of his cohorts.
Good evening.
Evening.
Good evening.
I guess starting, you want an update of where we were since the last meeting. I submitted a supplemental submission May 12th, which was to address items that the board had asked for. Specifically, Larry had asked us to update the stormwater management plan to include the comments where we talked about the stream and responses to Will Savage. So that was prepared, and we also incorporated, well, getting into that, if you had a chance to read it, when we updated it based on the soils analysis, the soil mapping we had, that there really is very little increase in runoff from this project as a result of the improvements. And that's noted on page 4 in the application for the report. We also provided a letter from the Kennebunkport Wells Water District on their review of the plans. They had a couple minor items which we've had addressed in the plans. And going back to items 1 and 2, I submitted plans to you, but I only submitted the plans that were actually revised. just for kind of a reference on why you didn't get the full plan set. Nina had asked about the status of what's known as Kings Highway or Perkins Lane, Ivy Lane, Ivy Way. So I provided a letter from Chris Vandiotis, which included discussion from one of our surveyors, Charlie Brown, and it included a subdivision plan from 1980, which that package clarifies the status of what was known as Kings Highway. And on the subdivision plan itself, we noted Ivy Lane as the road name. And then lastly, Larry had asked us about maintenance of the sanitary force main. And I talked with our engineer on that, and he didn't feel that there was any need for cleanouts in that line. It's a pressurized line. It's kind of a self-cleaning design. The way it's pressurized and forces everything through. So cleanouts actually create problems for them because it opens up airways into the line. So that's all I had that the board had asked for. So be happy to answer any questions.
Steve, could you summarize just for us again where we ended up with respect to the culvert and what you've recommended that you do and not do? Sure.
So the culvert, it's sized okay. We don't need to upgrade the size. The inlet, in other words, the side that's closest to our site, the embankment around that, we're going to stabilize. It's kind of, it is riprap, but it's not in very good shape. So we're going to restabilize that with more riprap. And that's really the only improvements we're doing to that culvert.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thanks for looking at those issues, Stephen. Yeah, I appreciate it. Appreciate the update.
Yep, no, that was a good request.
Okay. One other thing, there was a letter again on the topic of which I think you addressed in January. So do you want to talk about it again just for clarity?
And which letter was that? The one from Carol, I think? Is that right? Or
yeah, I think so.
So if I recall, that was when we did the original project, and there was concerns about the wetlands being tied into the tidal areas, which we're not touching those wetlands, so that they were not a wetland of special significance. So
good, thank you. Okay, and I note that Ralph sent us something, an agreement between
that's correct.
The neighbors on Endcliff and the ultimate owner of Lot 2B. So
correct. It includes an agreement that will join in the road maintenance agreement. It also contains some restrictions that Ivy 3 has agreed to, such as that it can only be used for residential, which that's going to be a condition of the board anyway. So,
right.
But we were able to reach agreement yesterday with the owners along Endcliff Road.
Good. All right. Any other questions, comments from the board? Nina, do you have something or just?
None from me.
Okay. All right. Well, hearing none else, I guess it's time to reopen the public hearing on Ivy 3. So do we have any public participants? Okay. He's muted. Oh, there he is. Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity. There was one thing kind of hanging fire, as I recall from the last meeting. The applicant was going to either do something with the culvert or dig a little, call it a casement or something for stormwater runoff in the vernal pool protection area. And I was wondering what they've decided to do, although it sounds like they're not going to fool with the culvert. Are they still going to disturb more land in the protected area?
No, and that was kind of part of the, when we redid the stormwater analysis, the old stormwater management plan, it actually showed an increase of runoff. It was very minor, but it showed an increase of runoff. And Will Savage from Acorn had provided some recommendations to the board as to whether we should pre-detaining, letting it go, or do nothing with it. After we reworked the stormwater management plan based on some additional information we had on soils, it showed that there was no increase in runoff, so the need for stormwater detention is not required.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Steve?
Yes.
It's just a question, based on that last one, you said there's marginally a little more runoff. Could you just address that?
Yeah, it's what the 1 CFS is what the increase is, which is, it's very minimal. I mean, if it was 10 CFS, I think you'd be concerned, we'd be concerned, but it's just 1 cubic foot per second of water. It's a very minimal increase. So.
And DEP is fine with that.
DEP is not reviewing the stormwater management section, but it will have a negligible impact on the culvert, and that's talked about in more detail in the report.
And Acorn is fine with the new report?
Werner had sent it to them. They just had one question about, we had made a change in one of the drawings. They asked for clarification of that, and we responded back to them. I don't know if Werner's heard any more from Will on that. You're muted there, Werner.
Thanks.
Yep.
So the last request that the correspondence that I had from Will was a request to add the pond 1P back into the HydroCAD model. It looks like there had been an element that had been pulled out of the in the March 2021 HydroCAD report. So, I mean, I suspect that ultimately, is just going to support, the conclusion, that we've just talked about this evening, with that being put back into the analysis. That was his last request as of, I think, Monday.
Yeah, and Chris Taylor, our engineer, had responded back to him, and that based on the new model, the pond basically does not exist. So the plans are correct, and they don't need to be revised. I don't know if he copied. I thought he copied you on that, Werner, but maybe not. It was
okay. Yeah,
Tuesday.
Yeah. I had to scroll down into the correspondence here. Yep.
So should we expect an email from Acorn saying that they are satisfied with the update to the stormwater report?
It would be good to have that come full circle.
It would be good closing.
Yeah. I don't have a final response from Will on that piece of it, but I can make that request.
Thank you.
To him so that we get that full circle.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Is that a condition of in a finding of facts, or do we have to wait until we get that from them?
I think that's entirely up to the board. However you'd like.
What I would like to recommend, if the board agrees with me, is that we proceed tonight and come to our conclusion. If it is in fact favorable, and I could begin writing the findings of fact and expect, I think, an update from Acorn in a day or two before the next meeting, and we'll come back with a favorable finding conditional on that. And if they don't, then we'll stop the process.
That's fair.
That sounds good to me.
Is that doable? Were you
Works
okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
It's a little clumsy, but keep the ball rolling.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
I
weren't
think
planning
that's
on
fine.
you weren't planning on reading one tonight anyway, so.
No, there's nothing. Let's make a decision first.
Yeah,
And,
concept.
again,
Okay.
I'm still. Let's let the public forum play out, and then maybe come back to see where we are, if there's any conditions the board wants to come to consensus on, and but whether or not this is going to be approved tonight.
Okay, are there any more raised hands out there? All right, in that case, I'm going to close the public hearing.
Yep, I saw a flash.
Oh, somebody flashed. Okay, sorry.
David Strang.
Okay. Well, then I didn't just close the public hearing. We'll wait.
He's not showing up on the panelists yet.
He's back again.
I did not raise my hand for this matter. I don't know how you got me on that.
I've got 2 copies of you on here.
Yeah.
You're really on now.
Well,
The 2 of you agree?
Well, you can't get on here, I guess.
Oh, good grief.
Yeah.
All right. You've outdone yourself, Dave.
well, it's my father is also on the line. We're both David.
Yeah.
Okay.
I see. All right.
So do you have anything to say on the public hearing, or are you fine? Then?
We're looking to comment on the Ivy subdivision. That's next, not this first one, right?
No, this is the Ivy Subdivision. We're
Okay.
talking about the Ivy Subdivision.
Okay. I think father was trying to get on. Dad, did you get on?
No, I hope so. I don't know whether I am or not.
Yep.
Nobody
Yeah,
recognizes it.
sounds it.
Huh? You
Yes.
can hear me?
Yes, sir.
We own a house at the top of the hill of Spring Valley Lane and look down on Mrs. Perkins' house and all the wetland that goes on down there. And we're very much involved in the proceedings that took place several years ago when they decided they wanted to build 8 houses or 10 houses in there. And after a lot of work, we got the planning board to turn it down because there were endangered species in those wetlands. And I thought the whole thing was dead by now, but it doesn't seem to make any difference in 2021. I was curious as to why the wetlands are not given better considerations, because that culvert that goes across the street drains, well, sort of weakly. It's okay, it's not great, but it keeps the wetlands in the back there so that they do have some sort of a watering going on most of the time when the weather isn't totally dry. And I thought that had been we had the University of Maine down there looking at that, and they were very much against the idea of building. So I'm just curious as to why that issue has not been more important for your people.
Tom, I'm not sure who we're going to ask to answer this, but let me just comment that it's been a topic of discussion at every one of the meetings. It's been extensively reviewed at the public meetings, and we've had a great deal of discussion. It's not been ignored, and I'm surprised to hear that statement. I would ask that maybe Steve speak in summary to the answers that have been given to the same question that's been raised a number of times.
Yes. So I guess, it is a fairly large wetland down there. And we've acknowledged that. We show it on our plans, and we're not really impacting that at all. We have a few minor impacts with the driveway, but for intentionally, that whole wetland is retained as it is. We've identified a vernal pool in there, a
Yes.
significant vernal pool. That's the only thing that is out there that is of importance. There's no rare plants in there. There's really nothing else other than the wildlife that's supported in that wetland and the vernal pool. The hydraulics of that wetland are going to remain the same. We are putting in a cross culvert for the new road, but that is a box culvert, so it doesn't impact the stream bottom. So it allows the critters to pass in that wetland. The box culvert doesn't prohibit or encourage water to leave that wetland. The wetland's basically going to stay as it is.
Stevie, Mr. Strand asked specifically about what's different now. Why, with the previous application, was it turned down, and now there's different reasoning? And it seems to me we had a lot of discussion about the differences between the two projects.
Correct. The first one was a clustered subdivision of 7 lots, I believe. I mean, we worked on it. I want to say it was 7 lots that consumed a lot of that land. It was a larger road. It was 20-foot wide road with shoulders and curbing and sidewalks and all that. So there was a more intensive development. The planning board did actually approve that project. But it had to go to the selectmen, and that's where it was denied. But the planning board did approve that after numerous meetings. So
We worked very hard to turn that project down at the time because the University of Maine said that the salamanders that they had in that wetland were unique to that part of the state of Maine, and they hoped that we would be able to encourage them. And I can't imagine that things have changed, that's all.
Well, I wouldn't say they were unique.
Too bad that you have to destroy that area. I'm also, although your folks are not responsible for that, I'm also extremely concerned about that corner in South Main Street, joins Arlington and Colony and all the rest of them at the bottom of the hill. I hope the town will get its act together and improve that road back there. I know it's not your prerogative, but boy, that is a dangerous area for drivers, dog walkers, bicyclists, and all the rest of the things that go on there. And because we live at the top of that hill, we see it firsthand. And it's not a pretty sign. But I thank you for your time.
Those of us who walk on South Main concur with your assessment, by the way.
We certainly do.
Which happens to be a lot of the planning board people do.
Live on South Main, we're well aware.
Yeah, that's one.
Steve, I have a question. If I remember correctly, reading the MDEP report, they
Seem to be muted.
and yet
You've cut out, Nina.
Now you're muted.
She's breaking up.
But she's muted now.
Well, now she's muted, so.
okay, can you hear it now?
Yes.
Okay. My understanding from the MDEP report was that there were no significant endangered species in there, and yet David is citing a University of Maine report that indicates there are some endangered species or unique species in there. Do you have that report?
I
Has that
don't.
been taken into consideration?
I don't have that report, but we had back in when that project was the 7-lot subdivision, there was an environmentalist that was hired by the developer to walk that whole property. And they found no rare plants or anything like that on the property. Because there was a lot of question about that at the time. And so they hired a consultant to review that. And there was nothing there. And I know that record is in the town file. It was done by TRC Environmental, I believe. Oops.
Well, Werner, do we have?
But I think, this is Larry, but I think the issue is you're not going to disturb the wetland, right? Or the vernal pool.
Correct.
So if there are species in there, they're going to continue to be in there. You're not going to
Correct.
build on those areas. So this is kind of a moot point, I think.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a moot point because any kind of development in there and construction is going to disturb the area because it's so adjacent to it. It would have been nice if you had included that particular report with the MDEP report.
I don't have the MDEP report. I was not aware of that.
I thought you had an MDEP report on this application.
Oh, as part of the permit by rule. Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought you were referring to something back when it was the 7-lot subdivision.
No.
Yeah, so I can take a look and see what we have, if that's something that the board is interested in, from the previous application, which that was that was 2006, Steve, was that?
Probably.
2005, 2006?
Yeah.
Just in consideration that when you're coming back to the board should really be in the packet, in the application packet. So yeah, I would like to look at that before we, before we go with the findings of fact, before we look at the full findings of fact.
I'm sorry, Nina, what is it that you want to look at? I'm not clear still.
The TRC environmental assessment that was done back with the cluster subdivision application.
If I might, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go.
I'm concerned about delaying this to look at a report from 14 or 15 years ago. We've reviewed the environmental issues currently. That was not even the same applicant back then. It may have been Sebago Technics representing that applicant, but this is a whole different applicant and clearly a completely different type of project, especially impact on wetlands. I think we've reviewed the wetlands pretty thoroughly through the preliminary and the final phase, and I'd hate to see it delayed just to review an old report.
Well, is this really a different owner, a different applicant?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Totally different project. I mean, that other project was a more intensive development on that property.
Okay.
We're looking at 2 lots, and lot 2B, which is the one that's probably closest to that wetland, the vernal pool, 2A, I'm sorry, closest to the vernal pool is restricted by the protected zone around the vernal pool. So it's a very limited impact to this property.
Okay, well, I'm not saying that we shouldn't go ahead with a vote tonight. I just think that the planning board should have that in front of them because it is a report on that particular vernal pool, even though it was done quite a while ago. So I'm not talking about delaying anything. I'm just talking about making sure that the planning board has everything in front of them that really pertains to this particular development.
So, so you would propose what? Doing?
I would propose going ahead with a vote, and unless there's something really egregious in that old report, I don't think it's going to be a problem, the findings of, but I think that the planning board should have had that in front of them. I think they should at least have it so they can read it before we finalize anything completely.
before we finalize the finding of facts,
Right.
right? So, but we'd still be approving the application right now.
Yes.
I'm confused. You're saying we would approve it, but not write the findings of fact until sometime
No.
later?
No. I'm saying that we would go ahead and vote for approval or non-approval
Right.
of the application based on what we have. But I think in terms of full disclosure, because it's been brought up by a member of the public, that the planning board should at least read that earlier report because a question has been brought up. I think you can go ahead and write the findings of fact. From what Steve says, it sounds like there wouldn't be anything egregious in it that we would worry about. If there were, then I'd say wait on approval. But I think you should go ahead and write the findings of fact and just at least let the planning board know that there was a report out there and let them read it for themselves.
I have a problem with this. I think we're talking about writing a finding of fact with the thought that more facts might be revealed, and then approving the findings of fact based on some unknown fact surfacing. I think we're either ready to approve this or we're not. Now, if you're saying that anecdotally, we've heard of this report, we've talked about it not having pertinence to the current project because of the significant difference, but that you still think it should be included in the package for the future, I think that's a reasonable request. I'm not sure who we would ask to get that. Who's going to go do the research to surface that report? But if someone could do that, I think we should include it.
Werner has already suggested that he would go and he would find that.
Oh, I'm sorry, I must have missed that. My mistake.
Yeah, no worries. No, I can certainly take a look at. I will look through what we have out back. In terms of information. So what I can look for is look for a report that looks like it was created by a group called TRC Environmental. I'll see if there's any University of Maine correspondence or documentation there. With that said, I also think it's probably appropriate for the board to have a copy of the findings that the planning board would have generated at that point in time for that subdivision. If it was indeed approved, then I would think that those reports were maybe taken into account on those findings. But I don't know. I'm speaking. I'm assuming that there's maybe some reference there.
So again, I'm not. This member of the board feels like we need to decide whether we have enough information to make a decision. And if we do, I don't think we should be saying that we need to look at the findings from a past project. I think we heard a readout from people who were at least somewhat familiar. I think Steve and I'm not sure Ralph, to some degree, you gave us input, and we trusted that the current vernal pool, which has got to be where the salamanders were, has been recognized. It's been carefully taken into account, and we're only going to approve this if we do, because it's been carefully taken into account. Now, if we think that perhaps it hasn't been carefully taken into account, then we shouldn't hold the vote, and we should get the additional information. I, for one, think we've done our due diligence here, but I think that's a matter for all of us to decide.
Well, the alternative is to not vote tonight, but you continue the public hearing maybe and plan on voting next time with the findings of fact ready to go so that it can all be done in one night rather than delay. But my concern is that a member of the public has brought up a piece of information that might be pertinent to this. And I think basically it should be looked at.
And I think the way you just described is really the only way to look at it, unfortunately. is to get the information as soon as possible so that we can look at it quickly. And Ed's going to have to write the whole findings of fact without us going through it again. But presumably, the idea is that there's nothing going to come out of that is pertinent to his finding of facts other than maybe to reference the document somewhere in it.
I mean, my recollection of that report is, the vernal pool was the critical thing. There was no rare endangered plants out there. They walked the property. There was nothing to be found out there. So,
and my thought is that the original 7-lot subdivision was approved by the planning board. So if there is this report from TRC Environmental, it was not seen to be an issue for the plan in 2006. And now that we have a 2-lot subdivision, that's even less of an impact on that area. So I feel like even if this report can be found, it's not. I feel like it shouldn't have an impact on moving ahead. That's just what I'm thinking.
Well, what's bothering?
Plan, which would be Ed writing the finding of facts, and then we get in together and voting and reading the finding of facts next time.
Yeah. Well, what's bothering me is that a member of the public has said, yes, the planning board approved it, but the Board of Selectmen denied it.
The reason the selectmen denied it, it was based on the access to Arlington Avenue and South Main Street. The only reason the selectmen had to review that project was because of the roadway connection. It had nothing to do with anything else on the project.
Oh, okay.
And Steve, we had that discussion at a previous meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it had nothing to do with the environmental piece. It was all based on road access.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is that the plan forward? Ed's going to write the finding of facts. We're going to get this report if it's available. Then we're going to vote and read the finding of facts next time. Is that it? Is that plan A?
You're suggesting to write a preliminary finding of fact.
Ready to read it,
and then have continue the meeting the next time. Have more deliberation, and
if necessary,
and then either finalize it and say no change, or go off and make changes.
Yeah. If this environmental report, can be found, I just can't see how it's going to impact this current subdivision proposal.
Well, I didn't ask for that report when it was brought up before, because I thought we had definitively said how we were dealing with the vernal pool. We recognized its existence. I think now we're changing our mind on that.
I don't think so. I don't think we changed our mind. I think what's been raised is the possible existence of a report that is likely to confirm the current DEP findings, or the current, the validity of the current configuration. I don't see how a 15-year-old report is going to impact the current plan. That's my view.
Sounds good. So, the public meeting, is that being continued?
Right now, we're sort of in limbo. We have.
I'm just saying you're asking for new information to be brought to the meeting. Will we,
if we're going to do it that way, yes. That was what we would have to do, is to say we'll continue the public hearing to 2 weeks from now.
This whole thing is because I brought up a point of contention with. I just asked for clarification.
You can show your face, Scott. You don't have to be.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that it was mute and unmute. I have to do both. Sorry.
I'm teasing. Yeah, of course.
I am back.
Nice.
Okay.
All right.
It's obviously the board's call what they're going to do. I'll just repeat my concern, where I understand that a member of the public brought up a reference to a 15-year-old report, but the vernal pool and the wetlands have been exhaustively analyzed this go around, both at preliminary and final, and you have the current information.
I didn't think it was new information that was raised by the public tonight, my point. Okay.
Can I add some clarification, please?
Yeah.
So first of all, Mr. Doe should know that it was actually a nine building development. He worked on it. He should know it was 9 buildings, not 7.
It started out, I think, as 9 and went to 7.
Second of all, there are multiple vernal pools, even though his report only shows 1 vernal pool. So there are multiple vernal pools back in there. And Mr. Doe's drafting here only shows 1 vernal pool, very conveniently.
No, there is one.
It's important that you do have that report. Can I finish, please?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. So I think it's important that you do get that report so you can see the real configuration of what it looks like back in there with the pools. There are at least 4 pools back in there. And it shows it on that State of Maine report from 15 years ago.
Do you happen to have a
And we've been trying to put this forward in the meetings, and you haven't followed up on that.
Do you happen to have a copy of that report? You, Mr. Strand.
I may. I'd have to dig through my stuff as well. I'll see what I can do.
I have a point I'd like to raise about it. My background's a biologist, and I live on wetlands, and I've lived on the same wetland here on South Main Street for 30 years, and it changes over time. Vernal pools are temporal. They are not like deep water lakes. Wetlands fill in and change over time. Trees come in, suck up water. So a 15-year-old report, if it were my backyard, would not be accurate. In fact, it would be grossly different now. Much to my chagrin.
That area is much wetter than it was 15 years ago.
And then a current report should be documenting that.
And this is a current report that Sebago commissioned.
I don't think there's anybody on the board or probably in this meeting who is interested in disturbing wetlands. If it's an issue, then and it can be demonstrated, then I'd like to hear about it. But I haven't heard it. Everything we've been given by people who are certified in this so far has demonstrated that it's not going to be disturbed in a significant way.
So, okay, so what are the next steps?
So what I've heard is that, I've heard that the board sounds like, it sounds like, there's obviously an interest in seeing this report, and so I'll take a look to see if that's available in the records that we have out back for that previous subdivision, and so we'll get that to the board. I would say to the board as well that if you think that there's something there that may that potentially renders a different decision, then I would tell you to be cautious about drafting a set of findings if you think you're going to come across something that would render a different decision. I will also say that it is, I would caution you against, we have processes involved for, acceptance of evidence and information, and you have a policy and a process, that you have that, to follow in regards to receiving new information. So it's a little out of, it's a little out of your normal practice to kind of receive last minute information, at the hearing. However, I will dig through the records to find that report if that was something that was submitted.
I have a question.
Suppose you do find that report, and 15 years ago, there were multiple vernal pools. What we just heard from George is that in the intervening 15 years, there will have almost certainly been enormous changes to the piece of property. Why then would we review or rely on something 15 years old as opposed to a study which was done within the last year?
Yeah. No, it's a good point, John. And I think historic information is good information to have. It's good to understand the history of a piece of property, just so that you understand kind of what it's been through, and how it's been looked at. But I do think it's a valid point in terms of reliance on material that's dated and arguably that was used in a review, an approval of a different development.
I think the further point, which has been made a number of times, so I won't talk about it too much, but is that the planning board way back then also approved it, even though they got this report that said they approved it based on that report.
Exactly.
So the fact is that I don't think we're going to get anything new out of this.
Mm-mm.
I mean, it'll be, be nice for my own curiosity to see the old one, but unless it says shows that somehow right where they're going to build the thing now, that was actually a vernal pool also, which I don't think it's going to come out with.
But Tom, could we possibly poll the board to see whether or not the board thinks that it needs this new piece of information to make a decision on approving the application as it is before us?
Yes, I think that's a good idea. So I will now poll the board and ask you if you feel we need to wait to approve this until we receive this extra document. So I do not feel that, so I'm a no. Nina?
I think the question's been raised by a member of the public that there may be an endangered species or rare species in there. And so we're looking at an old report to see if anything's the application on a further date and the findings of fact on the same date. So basically,
Okay, the voting members are 4-1. So George?
Oh, I'm going to say no, and I'm going to say no because I have to trust in the process that currently certified people have looked at it and they've identified it to be what it is currently, and I've got to trust that process at some point. So no.
Okay, and John?
No, for me as well.
Okay. I mean, I know you two aren't officially voting members, but so I think I would still like to see the report, but I don't see that it's going to affect your finding of facts particularly much. So I'd like to see the board approve this and have you get working on your finding of facts and have it ready to go in 2 weeks if possible.
So I would add to that, though, before we finalize that, I would like to make sure we understand what conditions the board would like to levy on this. We talked about it remaining residential only. Were there other conditions? I'm happy and we'll plan on documenting the various pieces of information that have been made available and making sure that's all captured. But I don't know of any other stipulations.
Not that it's not already on the drawings at this point.
Right, exactly. Well, actually, it's been captured as part of the legal document that was just provided now, the stipulation that it remain residential. We really don't have to levy that separately.
I think that's all a note on plan too.
It is a note on the plan.
Yes.
Note 22.
Good point. I just wanted to check on that. I'd like to make sure that I'm acting as a proper scribe here and not put my own.
The only other
twist.
condition would be if something unexpected comes out of Acorn, because we don't have the final nodding head with Acorn yet, but I expect
Right.
we will have that before we read your findings and facts.
So I'm not going to finalize and distribute a findings and facts to you all for review until I get that okay from Werner. On the satisfied.
Send him an email. So.
Yeah.
Yep.
I got the impression that it's all there except for.
Yeah. So I asked for confirmation from Will Savage of Acorn that he concurred with the latest conclusion as presented by Sebago. So
I would propose that we take our vote on this contingent on Acorn's concurrence with the stormwater report.
Yeah.
If that's not real, then we do have an issue.
So would that then?
That would be new information.
Okay, we approve it contingent on receiving that final go-ahead from Acorn.
Yes.
Then
all of the information we're hearing is that Acorn's concerns have all been addressed. We don't know of any outstanding. We just like to see it crisply stated.
Yes.
Make sure we haven't misunderstood.
Well, you're looking for a concurrence from Acorn that the revision proposed by Sebago assuages all of their concerns, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think I've heard that it sure looks that way, but
yep.
Can you just say it crisply? Yeah.
So what? So we're going to vote contingent upon receiving concurrence from Acorn
Okay.
with the final
Which means
updated report from
assuming
Sebago.
you get a contingent in the next day or so, then you can write your report and we can read the findings at the next meeting
Yes, sir.
and presumably sign documents, sign Mylars after that too.
So I would propose we approve this application contingent on Acorn Engineering stating that they are satisfied with the latest stormwater report and the responses that they've been given.
I'll second that.
Okay. So I'm going to go through the five of us here. So I concur with that. Nina?
I concur.
Scott?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess I need to officially close the public hearing at this point, by the way.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought, I missed it.
Well,
Got it.
yeah. So anyway, the public hearing is closed. We just approved this. Ideally, there's a finding of facts next time. And, if somebody could find the thing from the murky past and get it out to us, we would appreciate it.
Yep. Yeah. I'll go dig in the box.
Okay. Now, before I go to the next one,
Mr. Chairman,
I forgot to get approval of minutes of the last meeting.
that's what I was going to say.
Right.
So Larry submitted a Larry, do you always submit one? Well, anyway, Larry submitted a nice little critique with extra changes. So I'm presuming that what we're doing is voting on Larry's revision to Trish's minutes. Are there any problems?
I didn't see Larry's update. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Well, I can read it too if you like.
Yeah. What did you fix? It was.
So on page 2, it talks about the dock there, EBSCO, and it's about some of the provide, which are, and then 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is confirmation that the owner realizes that a water depth of only about 3 feet is available around the time of high tides each day. The water depth may impact intended use for the dock and could limit the use of the dock to kayaks or similar shallow draft boats. A larger boat with a draft deeper than 3 feet likely would have to be moored elsewhere. So.
And we did have that discussion. So I'm fine with that change.
Yep, so I just wanted to add that in there.
Yeah, so I'm good, if you were asking.
okay. So I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the minutes as modified by Larry.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, well, I'll second it then.
Okay.
All right.
So I'm in favor. Nina?
In favor.
Scott?
You're muted.
Scott's muted. He's waving at us, so he's in favor.
In favor.
Yes. Ed?
In favor.
Larry?
In favor.
Okay. Now we're legal. Okay, now we get to a minor amendment to an existing subdivision plan. This is item 210402, Cape Arundel Woods, Sebago Techniques authorized agent. And we have the same pair of people online. So you guys proceed.
Yeah, so this was presented at the last meeting. It kind of relates to the previous project where we're looking to amend the Cape Arundel Woods. It's a minor amendment. The change consisted of removing the hammerhead that was on the created lot and also increasing the side yard buffer or setback to 35 feet. Let me just confirm the dimension on that.
30.
30, thank you, Ed. And then the only thing the board asked for at the last meeting was an updated agent authorization letter, which I provided earlier this week. It actually had an expiration date on it.
We got that.
Yep.
Would we have a public meeting on this?
We do. So any other comments from the board before we open the public meeting? All right. So I'm going to look for raised hands again. This is on the end cliff end of the last discussion. So is there anybody raising hands to the public hearing? Okay, no hands being raised. I'm going to close the public hearing. Now, this is, being a minor subdivision, does not require a preliminary and final plan. It's just a minor amendment. So this is basically the change. So if we have no further discussion, I guess I would move approval.
1 second.
Okay, let me go through the list again. I'm in favor. Nina?
In favor.
Scott?
In favor.
Ed?
In favor.
Larry?
In favor.
All right, so that's over.
Thank you.
We're all set with item 3.
Thank you.
And Tom, I'm going to produce a findings on that as well.
Well, aren't you? Thank you very much.
Correct, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, item 4, Ocean Woods, has been deferred to next time. So I guess Sebago and company have already left the meeting. Oh, he's still there. We don't need
me
around for a little while.
A little while anyway.
Right. We need somebody about Mitchell Associates St. Ange property. So this is item 210403 St. Ange property. Mitchell and Associates authorized agents, a preliminary subdivision review. So,
So you'll want to be promoting Judy and Bob Metcalf.
I like that.
Alvin.
Haven't heard this one.
That's different.
This all part of that Windows upgrade you were talking about?
That's right.
It's a downgrade.
PSA, always do your updates.
Mm-hmm.
Disappointing grade.
Maybe try telephone.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bob, you may want to try calling in on a cell phone.
Does anyone have that number handy?
I can send it to him.
I believe he can hear us, but we got Alvin and the Chipmunks coming in.
No. Please, someone mute him.
If there wasn't a picture there, I'd say he was trying to hide his identity.
or maybe we're all being unfair and that is his voice.
It's a helium environment.
Right.
We're making fun of someone and it's not fair.
Oh, this is not fair. No,
I do. I have the number. Could you mute Bob for a second there? Okay. All right, Bob. The telephone number is 929-205-6099. And then I think the ID number is going to be 970-5454-6474.
Oh boy.
Maybe you want to, Bob, if you want to try sending me an email, we can do it that way.
So in answer to your question, Werner, from previously, how are we doing on Zoom and when do we want to start doing in person?
Yeah, no, that's it. That's a great question.
There might be a voice, I suppose, but
I am not a cat. Oh. Yeah, I'm spoiled now doing it from home.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're going to go back to 7 o'clock. Remember that?
yes.
Okay, so Dave, Bob's saying is that it logged him in, but it said that he would be muted. So I don't know if that's typical on the call-ins, that if when the call-ins occur, if they're automatically muted whenever they come in as a, as an attendee.
Then you type *9 is the toggle mute.
Okay. So you've got to hit *6 to raise your hand. Yeah, no, that number's been on there.
He didn't get through.
Yes, he said he's going to log off and sign in again and see if that helps. Yep. Yep, and then I just copied and pasted the information out of the agenda and sent that to him. Okay, so it looks like he's back in the attendee.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect.
You know, that happened to me once about 2 months ago in an interview, and I had to call in, and I kept hearing myself talking. I couldn't even concentrate. So, anyway, technology, sorry. For the record, I'm Bob Metcalf with Mitchell & Associates, representing Nate St. Ange on his proposed subdivision for the parcel he's purchased on Hillside Drive Extension. So, Werner, can I show the plans that I have, or? Can you see those plans?
No.
I don't know what's happening here. Usually I've had share screen option open it up. I'm opening them up on my screen, but you're not seeing them. Werner, do you have my plans by any chance?
scrolling through them at the moment here, so. Okay.
If you've got them, what I'd probably want to show is the one that was for the Henchy private road that showed the entire site, the entire Henchy property to start.
Okay.
Now that is the actual subdivision piece. This is the St. Ange. Nate purchased a portion of the Henchy property, which is 5.10 acres, which is part of that overall parcel. That was the original parent parcel. And then Hillside Drive stopped right at the terminus. And there was a right-of-way between two existing lots before it came up to the remaining portion of the parent parcel. And it's from that location that the private access road was approved and constructed. So we can go back to that first one you did show. This is the proposed division. As I said, Nate bought 5.0 acres, 1 acres back in December of 2020. That has access off the constructed private access way. That road was approved by the planning board in 2016 and constructed in 2017. The intent of the private access road at the time, the family wanted the ability to sell off a lot, basically using the family subdivision rule, state statute that allows you to sell off a lot every 5 years without having to go through any approvals for a subdivision is concerned. Nate acquired the 5.101 acres to build a house for himself and the other lot to build a home for his in-laws. So that's why he bought the 5.1 acres. And now we're back before the board for him to be able to divide that. The reason we're back before the board, as we discussed during the sketch plan, is essentially what this now constitutes is a 3-lot subdivision, with the parent parcel being the first lot and these basically being lot 2 and lot 3. And that's why we're back before the board. There are no proposed road improvements. The road is completely constructed and in place. The only site improvements that will occur, that'll touch up against the existing road, is where the 2 driveways will serve the 2 lots. Right now, Nate is working on his plans for his house, and we don't have at this point to be able to identify exactly where the driveway is going to be located, but it's a very straightforward proposal. In order to comply with the open space requirements, we're dedicated on the lower lot, which I believe is lot 3. I can't see the text on this thing right now. Lot 2 is 14,000 square feet, which is reserved, which is 16%. And then on the upper lot, we have 35,000 square feet of deed restricted open space, which comes up to be 26.5, where it's 15% per lot that is required for meeting the subdivision requirements. The dark gray areas that you see are the wetlands. The 22 acres that remain of the Henchy property, the majority of that is wet, and the ability to develop any further on that is probably limited to, at best, maybe 2 additional lots between the wetland and all the shoreline setback requirements and what required wetland crossings. It would be not very suitable for development because it wouldn't leave you much of a building window. So right now, this private road will probably at most serve 3 lots, these 2 plus 1 potential other one that would have access to it. The homestead for the Henchy property is off of Ocean Street. So that has its own road access, which is separate from the private road that we have showing tonight. When the private road was approved, we had discussed with the planning board requesting a waiver for extending public water and sewer. We had had discussions with the late Alan Moyer on the sewer and the extension of sewer to serve 2 lots. I mean, at the time, 1 lot, potentially 2, was cost prohibitive. It was going to require a significant upgrade to the sewer system and require upgrading 2 existing services that were allowed to tie into the existing manhole without being tied into the sewer main itself. And similarly with the water, the Kennebunkport KKNW were going to require a main extension. And at the time, they weren't sure whether it would be a 4 or a 6-inch line. But it was more water coming in on that than some of the pipe sizes that are actually already out in that particular neighborhood. But at the time, the planning board it was not required for us to have public utilities in, so there was no granted waiver at that time. When we started this application, I met with the fire chief to discuss fire suppression and the proximity to an existing hydrant. And we came to discuss the use of an NFPA 13 fire suppression, residential fire suppression system, which he felt more comfortable with, and our client feels much more comfortable with. The chief's feeling was the water pressure out there isn't adequate enough anyway, even if they were extend the line up in this area, just the general water pressure out there wouldn't be adequate enough that he felt more comfortable with having the fire suppression system. So part of the permitting request of the application is that we would do the fire suppression systems in both homes as part of this application. So those are the 2 waivers we'd be requesting. There is no wetland impact on this. We have on lot 2, we have a suitable soils for a 5-bedroom residence. And then on the other lot, we have 2 passing fields that could have 4-bedroom service systems as well. But right now, would be developing closer to the cul-de-sac as far as the house is concerned. So I think that covers a lot of the basic information. It's a very simple and straightforward. All the infrastructure was put in initially, as we said, that for the Henchy family to be able to spin off a lot every 5 years. So a lot of that legwork and the drainage work has already been completed. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, well, first off, there may be other waivers you need because of the subdivision regulations. But first question, the length of the road, the length of a dead-end road, the requirement in the...
Sorry, I don't know that, but I do have a skill you might like. It's called the song, and it never ends. You want to try it?
Alexa, stop! Excuse me. Anyway, sorry about that. The 1,000-foot rule on roads, I believe this road this dead-end road is more than 1,000 feet, so you will need us to waive it. I don't think that'll be a problem. The road's already existing. We just need to do it. The fire chief has to agree, and with your fire suppression system, he'll be happy. So, but we do need that waiver. So I assume you'll be requesting it.
Yes.
Okay, I talked, I was just reading the questions we asked at the sketch plan, and I'm not sure you answered some of them, but I mean, Ed Francis asked about the name of the subdivision, and you didn't know what it would be at that time. Do you now have a name for this subdivision, or do you need one?
I don't think we need one. The Henchy family, they haven't put anything. It'd be basically their call because they own the majority of the land, and they were not interested in necessarily putting a name forward at the time we had our discussions with them. So,
okay,
you're going to have a road name. I guess the question is there a reason other than the name attached to this.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. The other question, I guess, Larry Simmons was asking about concern about your wells with the potable water. So, Larry, do you still have that same concern you did the last time?
Well, I just wanted to ask whether there was a likelihood that the water supply would be maintained from wells, and Mr. Metcalf offered to talk to the well drillers to see if, what their experience had been concerning seawater intrusion, and I guess my concern was if there's some evidence of seawater intrusion in the area, then the wells are not going to last very long, and they may end up having to run a pipeline in anyway. So really, it was just a question exploring, things that might affect the viability of the locations as a housing locations in the future.
Actually, we did get the builder that's going to be building the home for Nate, got a well driller to give information, and didn't get a chance to forward that off to Werner. And I will forward that off to become part of your next package, but there doesn't appear to be an issue with being able to get potable water.
That'd be great, yeah.
Okay, I guess I'm done. So, Nina, do you have any questions on this?
Yeah, I had the same question about potable water, given the location. And it's close location to the ocean, and I know that, the proximity to wetlands and the proximity to the ocean, I really question whether there shouldn't be a sewer line in there, even though it's very expensive to put one in. Because I know that a lot of septic systems, old septic systems out there have been failing, and we've had problems with pollution. We've had it in the Kennebunkport River. Over time, they can be a real problem. And when you're that close to ocean water, Little River and wetlands, I think to avoid future problems, I really feel uncomfortable with septic systems in that area. And I don't know a whole lot about it, except that I know what I've read about failing septic systems. So I really think you should investigate, the cost of putting in a sewer line.
Well, yeah, I understand in terms of failing systems, and it's in most of the ones that were failing was the age of the systems and the technology. And the technology has changed significantly in just the last 10 years with the systems that are out there. The three locations for both of these lots are, one of the lots, there's a tiny wetland finger on it, and the other two, there are wetlands in the upper reaches, which are upslope or up gradient from where the leach fields are. And the soils are suitable for it. We've had them evaluated by our site evaluator who does design for the systems, and we feel quite comfortable that there won't be an impact because of these septic systems. I've seen projects at a higher density with smaller lots that are on septic that are in more environmentally sensitive areas that have passed the muster in terms of design. So
I would agree with you there, but the one wild card in there are the homeowners. And homeowners can destroy septic systems inadvertently by basically doing things like throwing water softener waste down them and things like that. They just don't know much about keeping a septic system going. So, and I agree with you. There are other locations where they put in septic where I don't think septic should go, but I'm uncomfortable in that area, Goose Rocks area, where they're having so much a problem with pollution, to not put in a sewer line there instead of septic and to start looking toward the future. So I'd have to think about it a little bit. I'd also wonder, Tom, have we done a walk there? Should we?
No, we asked, we talked at the last meeting, which was January, and said we would do a site walk as soon as we got the preliminary plan. So we need to schedule a walk.
Okay.
I'm going to ask this question, Tom, only because of my availability, because after the 26th, I may be gone for 5 weeks.
Oh.
So I'd have to send someone else from my office otherwise, but for me to be there would probably have to be by the beginning of next week, something like that.
Okay. Where are the utilities going? Are they going overhead?
The overhead power, actually the Nate informed me today that the power lines have been pulled in. The poles were set a while back, and they brought the actual service in overhead.
Okay.
And that was part of the original private road approval process.
Okay.
Okay. Scott, you have anything?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. Ed?
A couple of things. Follow up on Nina's question to Werner, really. What would the code enforcement office do about an application to put a septic system in here? Is it going to be denied? You know, is there a problem with putting them in here, or is this just isn't this a matter for the code enforcement office rather than the planning board?
So, provided that that they provide an application that's consistent with the subsurface waste rules, for the state of Maine, we would issue a septic system permit, for this property. So if it hadn't been for for the split that we're contemplating here, we would have issued a septic system permit for for this lot already. And to Bob's point, I think we've seen subsurface waste systems have come a long way in terms of design. The ones that we do see that have been in a state of failure have been ones, to Nina's point, ones that have been not properly cared for, or that have been abused, or overloaded in some fashion. But there are certainly systems out there that are running, 40 plus years and that are functioning just fine, because property owners know what they have and they take care of them and they maintain them. So, it's a combination of things that, that keeps the system, in check. Knowing that the property owner is aware of it, making sure that it's properly maintained and not abused, and certainly ensuring that it's constructed properly.
Yeah, there is certainly responsibility on the part of the owner. I just didn't want the planning board. I mean, I think we would be remiss if we approved something that wasn't permissible. But it sounds like with the right application and the right technology, it is a viable solution under law.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Let me go on to name. I think it was me that asked about the subdivision name, only because our subdivision regs in several places ask for a name. I know the submission requirement says, you shall specify the subdivision name. And in the application regs, it says the proposed name or identifying title. So somehow there's a notion that says a subdivision has a name or identifier, and just think I'd like to ask you to make one up.
About St. Ange property.
I don't have a problem with that.
For all practical purposes, I think that's likely how we start to identify it just in our own records, regardless of the submitted name, would be the St. Ange subdivision.
That sounds good. I don't really know what the purpose is. I think it's probably just that typically subdivisions are a little different than this, right? It's geared up for the general case.
Yeah. Well, from a practical perspective, it helps with the recording documents. Oftentimes the recording documents will reference the name. If I go to the registry of deeds and I'm looking up, historical information on recorded plans, the first thing that I'm typically looking for and searching by is the subdivision name, as opposed to the owner.
So let me continue then. That the St. Onge subdivision is a 3-lot subdivision. Where do I look, Bob, in the application to see what the total acreage of the subdivision is?
It's on the upper left of the general notes, which I can't read at the scale it's at right now.
And which page would I be looking at? The general?
Well, I can't even see the plan sheet. It's the, Brenda, can you see what the page number is on that plan?
Let's see here. That is
L1.
L1.
So I've got L1.
And if you go to the left gutter of the plan, it says general notes.
Yeah.
And in there, it has the table of the bulk standards, which will have the lot size. That's the survey.
There we go.
Where does it say how big the total subdivision is?
It's right over here.
So where you go to the net density.
It's down here, yeah.
Okay, you got the total, number one note says the total lot for the division. It says the St. Onge piece is 218,235.6 square feet of 5.01 acres.
I see all the pieces.
Yep. The Henchy parcel is basically 22.11 acres.
Yeah.
And then the right of way for the private road was 1.175 acres.
So how big is the subdivision? That's all I'm looking for. Do I have to add those up, you're telling me?
Basically that's the balance. I mean, I guess we're going to throw the question out is because the right of way is already approved, is that considered part of the subdivision?
If you're looking for the overall gross acreage of the lot, then you would add those 3 numbers together.
That's just what I'm going for, because the next thing I'm going to ask is, where's the 15% open space for the entire acreage of the subdivision?
The remaining portion of the 15% to accommodate for the remainder of the land would have to come out of the Henchy property.
Yeah, I'm looking for it to be specified. We're looking to approve this, right? The preliminary plan. And we need to know how big is the subdivision and where is the 15% of open space? And let me further go on to say, typically, I thought the intent of the open space, as it's written, is to provide common space for the use of all of the members of the subdivision. And it seems like what we're doing is carving out some unused space in 2 of the 3 lots. I'm not thinking that this is satisfying the intent or the literal regulation.
So open space was something that Bob and I did discuss, back when we looked at this subdivision, and based on the land that was, that had been purchased, which was this, larger 5-acre piece.
Right.
I think, just there's a practical struggle in where to identify and carve out land, as, to meet part of an open space requirement. And to your point, I think looking at the purpose is that you're looking at, the purpose of open space, being utilized as, land area for the use of, of the property owners. And here you have two property owners, that, these are your two property owners here. The Henchy piece, even though it's, I think we identified as a third lot just for the practical purpose of it being, a third piece. In a lot of subdivision pieces, this often gets referred to as, remaining land. And so, there's, I think in some subdivision reviews, there's a philosophical discussion as to whether or not this land, even is really considered as part of the subdivision because it's remaining land that's not proposed to be developed.
Right.
To your point, this isn't really, it's not a typical, this isn't a typical, subdivision where you start off with a lot of gross acreage, you've got numerous lots and you see a very clear path, in terms of, what the intent of open space is.
Right.
And you don't necessarily have that here.
It's like, Werner, there's a force fit here because we're trying to do this before the 5 years have expired. We really got a property owner, St. Ange.
Yeah.
Really going to call this whole 26-acre thing the St. Ange subdivision? I guess you could do that, but it's a little misleading. The St. Ange property is the 5 acres, and he wants to subdivide it before the 5 years have expired.
That's right.
Because of this, you have this requirement, or this set of requirements that are going to be very difficult to meet. I'm not sure that the planning board can approve it.
So when is the 5 years expire? When does the 5-year limit come up?
2025.
2025. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, this is one of those types of situation. It's almost to some degree, it's almost so simple it's complicated.
It's legalese here.
Right. Yeah.
And I went back and I did a lot of reading about the language that says that how the subdivision was formed and was there a way around it, and it seems like they've gone to great lengths for saying there's absolutely no exceptions to this. It doesn't matter whether it's inherited or whether it's purchased, whether it's the original owner, et cetera, et cetera. This has got to be treated as one subdivision. And once you start doing that, I start looking at open space. All right.
Well, keep in mind, the requirements that you have within the subdivision regs are, regs, for the board, for the board's perusal and use, and you have the discretion to apply those, to subdivision applications as you see fit.
Yes, but that document, that ordinance that we're talking about is a state regulation.
Mm-hmm.
True, that's right. Yeah, and that just outlines.
Violate that. I don't.
No. You're not. You're observing. State statute observes. Observes a time frame. That's what constitutes your subdivision. There are these divisions that occur within these specified time frames.
So the open space potentially I could waive.
That's correct. That is a local. That's not a statute. That's not a requirement by statute. That's something that you have within your subdivision regulations.
Yeah. Okay.
So it sounds like the easiest thing to do would be to have an additional waiver that says that while he has 15% of his new lots allocated properly or whatever, the fact is we don't know what the other 15. I mean,
we're not going to.
I really have to waive the 15%. Period.
Yeah.
Even though and in the description of how we're waiving it, just say he provided the best he could. He gave us the 15% of everything of his that he owns.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah, because to some degree they don't have any control over the land that the Henshies own.
Correct.
And there doesn't seem to be an objection from the Henshies, though.
They did not want to participate in.
Do you blame them?
Nope.
Not helping them.
And the Henshys were my client. I have to divulge that. I was the one who took it through the private
That's
road.
fair.
And we did the site analysis and best use for the property. So I had a good conversation with them, and they just felt that they wanted to stay away from it. They didn't take any objections with dividing a lot.
Using the road for an additional, no, that's all good.
Yep.
Yeah. So what Bob has proposed here was I think was a best, kind of the best case scenario that we had, that we came up with to say, okay, in order to try to address open space here, we're going to, have these land areas here that, that get restricted and, that can get restricted in terms of the use of the land, so these are potential, this is, land that can be identified as, not available for development, in order to, meet the intent of the open space requirement.
I'm persuaded.
But
given that I hadn't come up with that way of looking at it. I hadn't thought about the open space being something we levied. It really didn't make sense here to me, but if we can deal with it, then I'm good.
Well, you can always take another 15% out of those 2 lots, and then it would be covered completely.
No, well, you got to take of the 22 acres. You got to take 15%. That's a big chunk of.
That's right. You have to be a lot. That would
Wouldn't have
take
much to
most
build
of it.
on.
yeah, you do that, and you don't really have any lot left. So
Yeah.
It would take about 4 acres.
Yeah. All right. That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay. Well, but isn't that enough, though?
I hope so.
Larry, do you have anything other than what you've said? Are we good?
Well, I just wanted to, I'm just still looking at this drawing L1. So there's 3 test pit locations shown.
Yes.
So, does that sort of indicate the, something about the location of the house that would be proposed in each of those locations?
Not necessarily. When Nate purchased the property from the Henshys, the one on the lower lot, which because it's blurred and I can't remember the number on it, the one would serve a 5-bedroom. It's one that when we did the private road and the initial lot, basically it was about a 2-acre lot that the Henshys wanted to sell. We had the subsurface waste identified locations on the site. And that's one area on that lot. Then when Nate purchased the entire, he had a second test pit done, which is the one that's in the middle of the 3, if you will, not realizing that one we had already done when we did the analysis for the Henshys. So the furthest one away was one that had been done when we did an overall assessment of the Henshey property. So that's why that one shows 2, giving some flexibility. In terms of siting the house on that lot, I'm not sure Nate has gotten that far in terms of the design of that home that he's been focusing on his. So, but
Would we have that for the final application then?
I will ask Nate whether or not he would have.
Yeah. This is your building envelope here, what you see in this dashed, what you see in the dashed line here.
I see.
That's the building envelope.
Thank you.
And the same thing for the other one. So, but I mean, in terms of the location, the design of the house, I think he's working on his primary house, which would be on the lower lot. And we could obviously be able to put a footprint, probably for the final plan to show roughly where the house would be located to give you a better feeling. But for the other lot, I don't think he has anything in the immediate plans,
Yeah, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Yep. I'd just like to point out, though, that, to the board that, conceptual footprints are fine just to kind of give a sense of scale to it. But, when site work begins and, things are tweaked and located, oftentimes, homes wind up being located within the building envelope. But I just want to point out that oftentimes house footprints that get shown on subdivision plans are hypothetical locations and oftentimes get tweaked because, final final house plans and footprints haven't been, aren't obviously designed or figured out at this stage.
Again, I obviously can have a conversation with Nate because I know he is working on his plans, and if it's something we can have and work with him as to where he wants to locate it, we can obviously show it for you.
That'd be great.
Discuss that with him.
Thank you. And then I'm still a little bit in the dark. Okay, so we are talking about 5 acres purchased by Mr. St. Onge, right?
Correct.
And then there's this additional 1.175 acres that was the road.
Correct.
Which also, was that also owned by Mr. Onge?
No, that was the Henchies.
Henchies on that?
Yes.
Okay, and we were talking about, okay, so the 5 acres.
Werner, can you slide back to that Owen Haskell survey? I think that might help Larry understand. So
Okay.
right there, Larry, that plan is the survey that shows the private road right-of-way and shows the 5.01 acres that Nate has purchased.
Okay. And so the issue is that, okay. So the issue is that the Henchies are subdividing their lot into their remaining 22 acres plus this one that has been purchased by St. Onge. I mean, I don't quite understand why we have to consider the remaining land that the Henchies still own as part of this application. What's the connection there?
I'll let Werner explain that one.
Well, you do have a home that's on this, that is on the Henchie lot all the way down in the corner here. So there is a home here, and by state statute, if you have 3 lots within a 5-year period, that constitutes a subdivision. And so here we have, 1 lot, which is the Henchie, the 22 acres.
Yeah.
The St. Onge, that's lot number 2. And then this proposal, to split it creates lot number 3. So by statute, that's a subdivision and is subject to a planning board review.
Fascinating. Okay. So let's see. Okay. All right. So the issue stems from the fact that the Henchies sold basically 2 parcels. They built a house somewhere, and
they sold 1 parcel here.
They sold 1 parcel, and that parcel is, I don't know. It must be here somewhere.
5.01 acres.
Yeah. Right.
And we're going to subdivide that 1 parcel.
That's the only thing that's being physically divided.
Yep. You got it.
Okay. Okay, dope.
Okay. George?
Sorry, no questions.
Okay, John?
No questions.
Okay, so I think we're out of questions, so I think we can, assuming that we feel this is the case, we can get a motion to make this, declare this complete and have a first public hearing on June 2nd.
Tom, before that, I just want to make a comment to Bob that on his application under land information, I think he has the wrong lot number. I went searching, I think it's lot 9 or something like that. He's got it down as lot 1. It's definitely not lot 1. You might want to.
What section you on, Nina?
Your application for subdivision.
Yeah, the actual application form.
Table of contents.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've got way down at the bottom under land information from the tax maps, map 41, block 2, lot 1. I don't think that's lot 1. I'm not sure if it's been assigned other numbers because of division.
Yeah, I think at the time we were doing this, I think I asked Werner or I asked Lisa, and the number hadn't been designated on it yet. because it was only purchased in December. So I think I just used the same number I had when I submitted the sketch plan. So I'll reconfirm if there's the new number on that.
Yeah, I think someone else is lot one, so.
Yeah, usually what happens is that when there's not a parcel, well, in this case, it's usually considered like part of, whatever the parent parcel was, until the map block and lot gets assigned. But we can make sure that gets updated.
Okay.
All right. So can I have a motion then, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the application as it stands.
As complete.
As complete, yes.
I'll second that.
All right. And I'm in favor. Nina?
In favor.
Scott?
In favor.
Ed?
In favor.
Larry?
In favor.
Okay, so we will have a public hearing on 2 June unless that conflicts with Bob's schedule and he wishes to have it some other time.
No, we can still hold that. If we're holding that by Zoom meeting, I can do that from Canada because that's where I may be. But the site walk would be kind of a challenge for me to get to. So if we did that before, that would be helpful. If not, I'll have to have one of my associates do the site walk with you.
Okay, so Werner, you can work that. You and Lisa can work that out, right?
Yeah, we can work on getting that set up. I do think that's going to be a challenge, just given the notice requirements.
Yeah, we can't notice it by the 26th. So.
Right. So, yeah.
What I can do is I can have one of my associates. I can bring him down, walk him through the property. That would be Braden. You know Braden. So.
Okay. Yep.
And John knows Braden. So, and that way we can get you down to see what the property is.
All right. Good.
Okay. They can always call. They can call me remotely, and I can answer questions if he can't answer them. So.
Okay. Thank you, Bob.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. So we now need to bring in Jim Logan for item 210404, Vincent Thielen, or Thielen Longview Partners LLC. So we have Jim Logan. Thank you. Oops, I had him briefly.
What are you doing? Can you folks hear me?
Yes, well, there he is.
Hey, how about that? Technology has not failed me at the moment yet, anyway. How's everybody tonight?
Good. So you have a sketch plan in front of us here.
I do. And some of your previous discussion is applicable to this very simple division of one lot into two, and some of it is not at all applicable. This has nothing to do, as in the last case, with your wait time. The reason that I'm before the board tonight is that the lot that we are discussing, the 10-acre Thielen property that Vince Thielen owns, and he has the Rocking Horse Stables there at 245 Arundel Road. He is attempting to split a single lot off of that 10-acre lot to meet the needs of a new created lot for his son, Nathaniel. So this is not, it's similar to the last one in that it is a family member that we're trying to provide for, and it's not just a development lot. But the reason we're before the board, because the last activity on this lot was 27 years ago by a planning board in the town, is that the state law requirement is any further division of a previously approved lot in a main subdivision by statute requires to go back to the planning board for review. So that's the reason we're before the board, to make this, hopefully this new proposed 3-acre lot in that zone. It's in the farm and forest zone. It is, we've shown briefly at the sketch plan level the fact that we have net lot area met for the two lots. We determined by a survey with Dave Hughes, Livingston Hughes Land Survey, 50-foot strip of land adjacent to this 10-acre lot is in fact not a right-of-way, but is a strip that belongs to the larger lot behind it. So we have confirmed previous to today that Tim Harrington, who owns that back lot, is agreeable to providing for vehicular access from that drive, perhaps only during the construction phase of a dwelling, but that a future driveway is planned off of the Arundel Road. You see the old survey plan I've provided. It's so old that it was originally the Lester Wilds Road. Vince would like to separate the far 3 acres off away from his barn if possible. As part of the background information in the sketch plan app, I included on Werner's suggestion some additional background information. This original subdivision plan has the note on it that says lot not approved for residential use. It was determined through legal process after the time of division. Mr. Thielen came back to the board and was able to obtain in, I believe, 1994 approval to have a residence on that property. And it was determined that the non-residential use couldn't be continued and that he was allowed to use it for residential use. So that's in there just to provide some background. We did wetlands review and so forth. We have a suitable septic site that I anticipate, instead of in the future applications providing just test pit data information, we moved right along to what is the application for subsurface wastewater disposal system, the plan that Werner was referring to, that the code enforcement office could use to actually provide a permit for a septic system on the lot. The plan that you have that Dave Hughes prepared that shows a potential 3-acre net lot area, I note that it does not include currently property line setbacks, and we would have those added prior to preliminary application with the board. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. As I said, it's a single lot division. It sort of is counter to your subdivision ordinance. Many towns provide for minor subdivision approvals that review smaller lot numbers and therefore have slightly reduced requirements in order to get those approved. Your subdivision standards in Kennebunkport basically treat all divisions, all subdivisions as this one, as any subdivision, and that would include a, like we were talking before, a brand new, say, 14-lot subdivision where you could sort of work with the raw, gross land area and work better with things like infrastructure and open space. As we proceed, I will likely have a couple of requests for waivers for the board to consider, though we're not exactly certain what they are just yet. I believe at least the one I will be requesting will have to do with a hydrogeologic assessment for the placement of a well. The plan that we provided, that is the Longview Partners plan in your application, does have topographic information on it. A future plan we submit will include a well exclusion zone that will show a location uphill of the septic system or up near the Arundel Road in a place where a wastewater plume from the septic system could not affect that well because the plumes generally follow the topographic gradient. This plan also includes a farm pond that was made years ago and has a drainage ditch into it and out of it. And I think that will provide for fire suppression. In this case, I believe Vince years ago worked with the fire department to have a approved hydrant there at the edge of the road. Vince also, quite a number of years ago, obtained from the previous code officer a curb cut for off of Arundel Road as well. So he had already planned for a driveway years ago for something that now is applicable to this lot. And I'd happily, enjoy the company of the planning board on this property should they want to have a site walk. However, it's a very visible thing that you could probably drive by and have a good glance at it individually if that's preferred. We have no DEP requirements here, nor any Army Corps of Engineers permits required for this project. And now I take any questions from the board.
Okay, I'm good. Nina, do you have questions? Muted.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. The fire suppression pond and everything, it might have been okay several years ago. Do you plan to get the fire chief to approve it for future use?
I think it probably would be prudent to do so, wouldn't you, Nina?
Yes, I would think so.
Okay, let me add that. Let me put that right up on the top of my list.
Okay, and add number 2, make sure that that curb cut is still viable.
Yeah, that's a question maybe I'd ask Warner. Do you have any sense of the length of time for the validity of those permits, the curb cut permit one?
Yeah, I mean, typically permits are good for 2 years, unless they've, if they've been acted upon, if the entrance was constructed or not. I mean, to the best of my knowledge, the site distance requirements haven't changed any since they were put into ordinance, and so arguably a curb cut that was approved, within recent timeframes would arguably be reapproved today.
Let me look here. This was approved in 2004.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. So, I don't have any particular objections with that curb cut, because there hasn't been any changes to site distance requirements.
I want to also indicate that this application was both signed by the highway superintendent and the police chief in 2004.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same process that we use today.
Then I'll assume it's okay.
No. Yeah, have to be reapplied, but it probably
have to be. Yeah, we'll have to refresh that one, but
okay. Then it's a contact Mike clause.
There you go.
Yeah, those were my only questions.
Okay. Scott?
I'll wait to see what the requests for waivers are.
Well, this is a sketch plan, so I mean,
I'm fine.
For now. Ed?
Yeah, just a quick question on the restriction that was levied at in was it 82 for lot not approved for residential use?
The plan was originally approved in March of 83.
What's the current state of the documents that are in the registry of deeds with respect to that restriction? I see a letter here saying that we shouldn't have done that. We weren't, but is it on the deed now? Is it in the filed subdivision documents? What's the legal standing? We'd like that to be clean.
So oftentimes, Ed, the only thing on some of these older subdivisions that winds up at the registry is the actual plan itself. I think it's a relative, recent thing in terms of subdivision history that you have findings that get recorded at the registry.
Maybe the findings here, but it doesn't say they're recorded.
I do.
That's right. It's not necessarily a common item that findings are recorded.
We could potentially though clean that up if it is needed.
Well, Well, that's right. I think, in any future findings here, you would want to just address that, that language has been addressed and, modified by the board.
We'd reference this letter saying that we recognize it, and then that findings would be captured.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Larry.
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, that letter's not at the registry. That letter is, I actually think I want to say I found it in the vault.
That's right. That's correct.
Was where I found it. So, because a lot of sometimes you have documents that aren't even necessarily in the property files that we have. Some of the planning board documents, depending on how they were filing, in the 80s or the 90s, wound up in the binders, that went with the planning board, minutes and agendas that are kept in the vault. So it sometimes takes, a little bit, some digging to get all the relevant information.
Oh, I understand. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. So Larry, did you have anything on this?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay. George?
We have a vault?
We do.
No, I have nothing to add.
Okay, John?
No.
Okay. So I think, Jim, we're fine that you've heard what we said, and, we would, what does the board feel like about either just driving by the site and looking at it, or do we want an actual site walk?
I don't feel like I need it.
I don't either, so.
I've been by it many times.
Okay. Well, it sounds like we're not going to bother with the sidewalk.
Okay, then. That's fine.
Not if we like walking around with you, Jim, we've really had.
The only thing I can comment is that you'll never find a site with less pucker brush, and you'll probably never pick a deer tick off you while you're there.
Wow.
So I got a lot of other properties I'm going to take you to eventually where there's much more potential for those kinds of hazards.
Yes.
I will have one coming that will start from scratch, and we'll be, providing all kinds of the original typical things you see in a subdivision application. This one is definitely a non-typical one. So I will return with a preliminary plan as we gather additional information.
Super.
I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Now we need to bring it back. Poor old Steve. There he is. Poor old Steve. By the way, when we're done with Steve, or some point, I need to discuss the last three items, 5, 6, and 7, in terms of case managers. But why don't we listen to Steve on Ocean Ave?
I believe there might be a Ryan Berube in the audience. If he could be brought forward, that'd be great. He's still on. Great. Also, if you can let me share my screen, I can pull up the drawings. Great. I assume you can see my drawings, or?
Yes.
Okay. So you're familiar with this site, I presume. It was back in May of 2019. We went through with Lord and Harrington with an application for this site. They went through the whole process of removing the existing house, had the architectural design finished up, and we're hoping to build it if they had a buyer. They didn't get a buyer for the actual house, but they had a buyer for the lot, which is Ryan. So Ryan has purchased the lot, but was interested in building a different house on the property. The house is pretty similar to the existing house that was on the lot as far as size and location. He's also planning on the 30% volume expansion. The impervious pavement is slightly less than the previous approval. The house or the driveway location is different, and he's actually added a pool and a terrace off the back. If you recall the old plan, it had the daylight basement with the garage out the back. His proposal is different than that. So I'll just kind of go through the plans just to kind of refresh the site. So this is what was existing. This is the existing house, limits of clearing, and then the balance of the site, which we had the tree survey done. This next plan, which I'll kind of zoom in on, shows a comparison of the existing with the proposed house. So the existing house is the lighter gray. The proposed house is the black, darker line. Pool is located here. And then we have a driveway, which doesn't show, but that driveway is coming in here. And I'll move on to the site plan. Actually, the grading plan. I think that shows most of what you can see for improvements. So again, this is the house, the pool, the back terrace back here. Septic system is in the same location as previously permitted. The previous one was a 4-bedroom. We're doing a 5-bedroom house, so the system expanded slightly. And then the driveway, this location here is where the existing driveway is, but we're actually doing a loop driveway and coming back out here. And the reason for that is this is the best site distance out there. If you've been down Ocean Avenue, you know, it's kind of limited down here, but right here you can see clearly in both directions. So we've located this driveway right at the top of the hill. Cars can come in and they can exit out this way, but they also have the ability to turn around and get into the garage, which is facing right here. Front of the house is over here. We have walkways that lead up to the front door. He's got a deck and a porch over on this side, and then a patio in the front. The grading around this is very similar to the previous one that you had approved. Same with the balance of the site back here is all very similar to what was previously approved. So we're working within the same disturbed area of what was previously approved. I don't know if there's anything else. The landscape plan also is the same. I'm not showing any landscape around the house. That would be something that he would do as an own. But out here in the woods, you know, we had disturbed some trees out here, so we have a landscape plan to reestablish what was removed out front. And that's the same as what was previously permitted. I think these are just construction details. The house that they're proposing, this is the house, this is the front elevation. That would be what would be facing the ocean. So it's a 2-story house with a daylight basement. He's got porches on the side. There's the first floor porch here and a second floor porch here. That would be the rear of the house. So this would be the daylight basement section. This would be the side. So this is the deck that he has. This is the porch, and then there's a deck above that. That's an open air porch. And then this is the garage side. 2-car garage with a deck here and then an upper deck over there. So that's just the application which you've I think that's all I really needed to talk about. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have on this.
Okay. I don't have any questions right off, so why don't we go to Nina?
I have a few questions. The one that is bothering me a lot is the the ability to build there, because when I went back to non-conforming structures and replacement and everything, I went to 8B, number 5, and maybe Werner has a different feel on this, but it says there basically that any non-conforming structure which is located less than the required setback from a lot line or normal high water line of a water body, tributary stream, edge of a wetland, and which is removed, which this is more than 50% of the market value before such damage, destruction, or removal may be reconstructed or replaced, provided that a permit is obtained within 18 months of the date of said damage or removal. Well, the house was removed, and now they're looking to ask for a permit to replace that house.
And Nina, just to be clear, this is Brian speaking. So the house was removed in order to build a new house that you already gave a permit to. So all we're doing is there's an existing permit that has been issued, and all we're doing is we're just saying that we're gonna build a different style house, but we're gonna be in the same conformity that the old approved permit was.
And to clarify, I guess to clarify that, we do have a building permit for the previous house.
Yep.
So that is an active permit.
That may be a permit, but it's not for this application. Werner, maybe you can clarify that, because to me, that says that the grandfathering is over.
Yeah, so there is still an active building permit, on this site. There is a 5-year provision that deals with residential uses. I'm working through to pull up that section of ordinance as we speak, and I'll have that pulled up here in just a moment.
Okay. Well, I think that has to be stated in any findings of fact. Have we done this before? Because that really bothered me, that they tore down the house and then waited over 2 years basically to put in an application to build a different one.
Well, I don't know that they waited 2 years to put in the application.
Yeah, just to be clear, so I think the order of operation in here is Harrington went to the board, they got approved to build it, they decided to tear down the house. I'm not sure why, but they did tear it down. He couldn't sell it with the existing house plan on there. I bought it in December of 2020, so a couple months ago. And so now I'm coming to you a few months after that for the new plan.
Yeah, I know what happened, and I understand what had happened, but when I read the ordinance, it doesn't read like that. It was a different applicant, and he removed the house. And then it was over a year and a half later, 18 months, and you're going for a new permit, basically. You're not working on the existing permit. So, I'm just looking at the ordinance and wondering, do you need a waiver? Do you need special permit or something like that?
Or I mean, is it possible to amend the existing permit? Would be the other question.
So the section that I'm looking at, in addition to just dealing with the reason why we're looking at this is because it's a resource protection area. We're looking at it also as a non-conforming use. So under article, it's 240.8.8. Where it talks about the resumption prohibited piece. It gives where it talks about that 1 year, the 1 year resumption prohibition. But it also talks about that it doesn't apply to the resumption of a use of a residential structure, provided that it has been used or maintained for residential purposes during the preceding 5-year period. And so, you know, how we see that is that there's not a loss of use, you know, because, you know, there had been a residential property that had been maintained within the past 5 years.
Not sure that applies to a non-conforming structure. I think there may be a way around it, but I just want to make sure we're looking at it very carefully and we can, you know, assure that this can be done.
Sorry about that.
Under the ordinance. Okay. The septic looks, I know we've been through this before, but it bothers me having septic there, but there's no sewer on Ocean Ave, right?
No, that's correct.
Okay, so we're doomed to that. Okay.
At least it's a new system.
Yes, I understand the new systems are much better. Again, that depends on what the owner does with them. So, you know, I think, you know, people have to be, that's surrounded by wetlands, absolutely surrounded by wetlands. And it's a very sensitive system. I don't think that lake is very deep. So any pollution flowing in there would really raise havoc with that habitat. And of course, I'm going to raise my questions that I've raised before about bird safety. And I see sliding glass doors there from patios, and I see other windows. And I'm going to say that this is a shorebird and nesting bird habitat. And, you know, I cannot approve an application that's that close to all of that habitat without having something going on, either bird-proof window glass or screens over those windows and doors to help protect the birds, or architectural design with overhangs that protect the glass so that there's no, you know, the birds don't crash into them. I think it's extremely important. The other thing that I worry about a lot is that open area that is surrounding the house. I'm wondering if you're going to put a lawn there and dump a whole bunch of pesticides there that are going to flow right into that habitat as well. It concerns me very much. I think I would want restrictions on that you can't put, you know, any pesticides down on a lawn, you know, that you're going to have there or whatever you're going to have there, because they're definitely going to flow as soon as it rains into that lake. Those are my pet peeves. That's all I have.
Okay, Ed, you were the, you were the case manager on the original one of these.
No, I have no questions.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Oh, Scott, anything?
No, thank you.
Larry?
Well, I just had one. Remember on the original plan, you were expecting to reuse an existing 76-year-old water well or something?
Yes.
Are you still going to do that, or are you going to run a water line?
We're currently planning on continuing with the well here, but they do plan on running a water line out to the front. There is public water out front, but it's a very expensive fee to tie into it. I'm going to say it's the $40,000-$50,000 range to tie into that. So I think the plan is to stay on the well.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. George, anything?
Guess I'm going to stay on the well too. I wanted to add to Nina's comment about pesticides, also fertilizers. A lot of runoff into a very shallow wetland system will cause algal blooms. That's it.
Okay, I think I didn't pull up the old finding of facts to see what we imposed on the last, the Lord and whatever.
Yeah, I don't recall. I did include it in the packet, but I don't recall what the discussion was on that. I know it's obviously a good concern.
Yeah.
I don't think there was an intention to put a lawn in the last plan.
Well, there was land. I mean, we had landscape areas, and I'm sure they would have had a lawn, but I don't know if it specifically talked about restrictions on it. I mean, to me, it makes good sense because you're right. It is a very sensitive area.
Well, it's just the window protections.
That was it?
Condition that we levied.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't have lawn protections, but you've left that open area around the house, and now I'm really concerned.
Okay. John, anything?
No.
Okay. Well, so I guess at this point we need to probably just declare it as complete and proceed to a public hearing. And I think we need, probably a few of us need to do a little additional looking through and figure out what conditions we might want to impose other than the windows, which is the same as the last time.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I have a motion to, I guess you can bring that window down where a motion that it's complete.
I'll make a motion that the application is complete.
Have a second, please.
Okay, I'll second it.
All right, so I'm going to go through the names and then that's okay. So I'm in favor. Nina?
In favor.
Scott?
In favor.
Ed?
In favor.
Larry?
In favor.
Okay, I think we're done, but before we adjourn, I want to discuss case managers on a couple of
Thank you,
days.
by the way.
So
Appreciate it.
we're done
All
with you,
right.
Steve.
Yeah.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Okay, and Ryan, also thank you for calling in.
I'll do the one for Jim Logan, the Rocking Horse Stable one.
Okay.
You don't actually need anything for the sketch plan.
Right, we're not, but eventually.
But
Eventually you will.
If you want to,
Eventually.
yeah, if you want to go ahead and claim that as case manager for when he does the subdivision submittal.
Right. So the item number 5, the St. Ange. Now, Larry, you volunteered for it when we had the sketch plan.
Yes.
You're also responsible for the for Ebbs Cove. So I might suggest maybe somebody else could do St. Ange.
Okay.
I was also thinking, Nina, that you've got enough on your plate with the colony, but
Yeah. Well, that we don't know when that's coming back.
we don't know when it's coming back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I need let's get a volunteer for St. Ange.
I'll take it.
I'm sorry. Okay, John. All right. Very good. And we need a volunteer for Ocean Ave, 250 Ocean Ave. And Ed, you had it last time, but you're doing 2 FOFs right now. So I don't know if you wanted to take it again or.
Not particularly.
Well, it's so similar to what Ed wrote already. I can probably handle that one.
You can volunteer me as well.
Okay, I just volunteered George, Ed.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
Very good. So
The work on that, George, is looking at the deltas in the numbers. You know, it's a 30% expansion. Is it 29.54? And do you agree with
Right.
it?
Yeah.
Right. I will be certain to have someone review my calculations.
Oh no, we're going to trust it. Because we know
I will review my calculations.
yes, and we're expecting a thorough description of all the biological aspects.
I'm trying to find my slide rule.
Uh-oh. I'm not going to ask where that might be.
All right, I'm going to take a motion. Hey, we got done at 8:30. I'm impressed.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you, guys.
All right,
See
thank you.
you next time.